right, everybody. We got another very special guest for you all. I want everybody to welcome to the show, Mr. Pat Shand. Welcome to the show, Pat.
Hello.
Hey, Pat.
Hello, everybody. I'm happy to be
Yep.
here.
Yeah, thanks. We're happy to have you here, man, after some technical difficulties. Thanks for staying with us.
Oh, it's all good. It's all good. That was, dude, I've seen some insanity. That was nothing.
Okay.
Yeah.
I always go back to the story of how we set up Rob Venditti's laptop for him during an interview once. That took quite a while, but I was like, we're getting this interview. So glad to have you here. It's your first time. Before we talk about some of the stuff you're doing and all the stuff that you've done quite a bit. So let's hear your origin story, how you got into this wacky world of comics.
All right, origin story. As a kid, I read comics very passively. I was given this shoebox full of comics, and I would go through it, and it wasn't really that much for me. I would see stuff like Rocketeer, which was okay. I enjoyed seeing Betty Page at the time. But in that box was Creepshow by Stephen King and Bernie Wrightson, and that's
Nice.
the one that I kind of like glommed onto as what comics could do. And unlike the other ones, it was a trade. It was this oversized trade. At the time, I didn't know this, but they didn't even do that kind of thing. That was just very strange. So I enjoyed the longer form in that format a lot, but I mostly read novels. I was a big fan of fantasy, young adult, of horror. So when I began to write and just try to get my stuff published, I was doing more prose. Short stories, novel pitches. I was going the lit agent route, just pursuing that. And more, I began to try different kinds of writing. I tried writing scripts for TV. I tried and had some success doing off Broadway theater. And that was where I started to kind of, do it professionally and develop a name. And I was intrigued by how many different avenues there were of writing. And I began to kind of gravitate more toward script, wanting to do theater, wanting to write for TV. So I started to study more TV shows, and I would start to see these TV shows like Supernatural and Buffy and Angel would be continued as comics. And I never really thought of, who writes comics at that point. So I started to pick them up and see that the same TV show writers who were writing the show were on the comic too, which gave it this feeling of that it was legit, that at the time, I needed to kind of woo me over. But then when I started to read comics and read these stories continue, I realized how cool they were, how they were playing with this format that was sort of this in-between television and prose, where you had that image, but you can control your pace of it the same way as prose. And I was very intrigued by that level of, writer's control in the pacing of the comic, and the collaborative aspect of it reminded me of theater. You're working directly with an artist, colorist, letterer. And in theater, it's such a collaborative, you sit down, you workshop the play, you hear the actors say it over and over and over. And I liked that collaboration. So I started to try writing comics. I wrote about comics, I wrote test scripts, and I began to write reviews for the comics that I was reading, like those licensed comics. I got in good with IDW because they were doing Angel at the time. And I began to sort of like woo the editors by doing those reviews, interviews, and then I began to annoy them by sending them scripts, full stories.
Nice.
And they liked them enough that they didn't give me a huge shot on the title when it was big for them because it was their number one title. But when they lost the title to Dark Horse, I talked to Chris Ryle at a con, and he told me that they were doing this one final one-shot for Angel. And he and Mariah Heener at the time, who was the editor and co-writer on Angel, both gave me a shot to have a short story in that Angel. It was called Angel Yearbook. And that was, my 8 Mile one shot, and I didn't have a chance to blow, dude. I did it. I pitched, I got it going, and I sold it everywhere. It was, dude, it was a 2-page story. Story.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah, but when I used my credit, I just said I wrote Angel Yearbook. I didn't have to say 2 pages. It's just the credit is the credit.
Yeah.
So I took that to different publishers like Big Dog Inc., Zenoscope, and Zenoscope at the time had Charmed, and that was their big license. So I saw that as a natural pitch for Charm, that they were both
Right.
on the same network, both kind of the same vibe. Even though I always found Buffy and Angel more adult and Charmed a bit more family oriented. I thought it was still an easy step, and yeah, it worked. They said yes immediately. They liked the sample, as short as it was, and they gave me Charmed season 10, which took a long time to happen. But as I was waiting, I began to get other smaller gigs from Zenoscope, and I was made staff writer there after proving myself. Did that for 4 or 5 years, and then began to break more into the independent circuit on Kickstarter and publishers like Black Mask and Scout, which is what I'm doing now.
Yeah, and the relationship you have with Zenoscope now, I mean, you've wrote quite a lot of books for them, right? So you said you're a staff writer, yeah.
Yeah.
So
there was a time where, I was just thinking about this. It was the busiest time of my life. I would wake up in the morning, be a barista at Starbucks. I would drive then to a college where I taught script writing and screenwriting. And this was 1 year out of college. They hired me on my comic book credits, So I taught that. And then I would go home and write scripts. At the time, I was writing between 7 or 8 comics for Zenoscope per month. And It was the craziest time of my life. And now it's different because now I'm more also in the admin role of the publishing company that I run Space Between. But it was insane. It was insane.
Yeah, that was quite a lot of comics you're writing. It's like you're like a script machine, pretty much.
Yeah.
So let's talk about Charm for a minute, season 10.
Yeah.
Was there a lot of weight on writing that story, or?
Yeah, because when I submitted my idea, because they had a writer that was steady, Paul Roditis. He was writing season 9, and he's since become a great friend of mine who has been a shepherd of my career in multiple different ways. Paul was writing season 9, and I didn't want to step on his toes. He was doing a good job. I read it, to kind of catch his vibe. And my idea was to pitch a miniseries in between his seasons. To do season 9 for Paul, I'll do my miniseries as a sort of 3-issue thing that can follow one character, and then he would pick up season 11. But Paul was done. He had told his story. He didn't want to do season 10. And he helped me instead in an immense way by staying on for the first arc as editor. And he sort of, dude, the fan base is very intense there,
I can imagine. Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Yeah.
Yeah. So Paul staying on as editor, he helped me he was like the person who coaches you into the pool, when you know it's going to be too cold. And he was a huge help there. He talked me through working with licensors because I hadn't before. And so, Paul was my shepherd there. And I wrote season 10 after a long wait because it was a licensor thing, that has impacted my career in multiple different ways. Just waiting for licensors, working for licensors. But yeah.
That's one way to go from the 2-page story.
I mean, it was a 2-page story, and the Charm gig was a 20-issue gig.
Yeah,
it even started as 24 issues, basically ongoing. But the license was expiring, and
Yeah. So let's talk about. So you have your own publishing company now. When did that come into the fold there?
Well, I went to Kickstarter. I was fresh out of my time at Zenoscope, and I still write for them here and there, and they're still good friends of mine. But I was, locked into an exclusive contract where I was, for years, becoming the voice of those characters, of those titles, and we both felt that I didn't want to be seen as someone who just writes Zenoscope, and Zenoscope certainly didn't want to be seen as just the Pat Chan company because they were their own writers too,
Right, exactly.
So I wanted to go and I was taking these gigs here and there. They were very nice toward the end about letting me do other work for hire. I just had to ask, and they always said yes. So that was very cool, and it kind of prepped me to do this Kickstarter. You know, I wanted to try different things and grow in my career as my own voice. And I went onto Kickstarter with my series Destiny New York. The idea was to do, one volume that could read as a standalone, but then hopefully expand and grow the series into an ongoing series. And when I saw the functionality of Kickstarter and what it could mean for me, I knew that it couldn't be just this one. I had to make this series ongoing, and I had to bring other ideas to the platform because I loved it. So as soon as I made Destiny New York and funded that, Volume 1, I decided that I had to make a company. You know, I had to make a business so I could protect myself in certain ways, you know, and tax shit, you know.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And I thought it was good to also eventually work toward developing a team. You know, I was very inspired by how Joe and Ralph at Zenescope had developed their team and their brand. And so I made Space Between Entertainment, which it was originally called Continuity Entertainment, because that's based on a novel series that I was working on as a team that I hope to someday revitalize and do my own way. But I didn't know that there was Continuity Comics. You know, it did not show up while we were looking for trademarks, but it's there. I just, you know, I was not a huge comic historian growing up, so I got a call from a certain office that said, dude, like, your company can't be named that. so
Find another one.
Yeah, so my editor, Shannon Lee, we thought about it, and I don't even remember what pushed me to go on this, because we had a few different titles. A few of them, thank God I didn't go with. I look back and I'm like, really? I thought that? But Space Between is the brand, that's the team, and yeah, we are doing our now 23rd Kickstarter as a team.
Awesome. Yeah, so you've had great success there, and you've built, I mean, we can talk about your Kickstarter now. Cheeky, yeah. I mean, clearly you have a fan base. I mean, this is as far as our guests go, I mean, this is probably one of the largest backers we've seen. I mean, over 1,600 backers.
It's a lot.
Let's talk Cheeky and what you did with the previous book too, and then what you're doing now.
Yeah, all right. So Cheeky is a graphic novel. It is made up of 4, well, now 5 because we've expanded. 5 stories that stand alone, but then at the end they overlap in exciting and emotional and humorous ways about sex.
Okay.
The idea, it actually kind of stems from my time at Zenescope. Zenescope would they market by doing these covers that have cheesecake elements. You know,
right.
Sexy covers that kind of have people who don't understand that the collector's market and don't read the books don't really know what they are sometimes. So some people would often come to me on either online or at cons and assume that it was porn, when the truth is Zenescope books, you know, they don't even have nudity at all. They're action adventure books. The covers are a certain way, and that's only a portion of the covers. They do an A cover, which is a character pose, a B cover, which is a scene, and a C cover as a pinup. Most of what people see that trend online are the convention exclusive covers, you know?
Right, yeah.
So, there's this faulty perception, and I would always take offense at that porn thing, because I was like, wow, you are so far off the mark. I began to think, wouldn't it be a cooler thing to, instead of getting offended, wouldn't it be fun to internalize that and make a porn that is more character driven, more emotional, and funnier than what those writers could even imagine, you know?
Right, exactly, yeah.
Yeah, so my wife and I do Cheeky. It's the second book in our adult line. We did Thirsty and Cheeky. And yeah, the idea is to just approach stories about sex with no shame. Stories that have the same kind of character elements, where it isn't like, I mean, you probably have seen porn before where the story is just like in service of the sex, you know?
Right.
It's all set up and the sex is payoff.
Yeah.
In Thirsty and Cheeky, the character's arc, there is not this sex as the goal. It's about sex, about how sex impacts characters' lives, about their anxieties and their desires, and what that says about them.
It's
Oh my
so
God.
funny. It's so funny you bring
My
that
wife
up.
just scared the fuck out of me. Sorry.
I've been sitting there for about 5 minutes.
Really?
I've been interacting via my eyeballs with the guy on
Yeah, it's pretty
Really?
awesome.
You didn't even know I was there, and I thought you were ignoring my ass.
I would never ignore you. This is my wife, Amy.
I just want to say it smells really good in here.
I made dinner. She's also the co-writer of Cheeky and Thirsty.
Awesome. Welcome.
Yo,
yeah, that was amazing. I thought you saw her. I was like, oh.
No, my heart is pounding right now, dude.
Oh, I thought you were just that into the book, man.
No, I mean I'm clearly very unobservant,
Yeah. It's funny you bring up those covers. I know Chris is here and can hear us. I don't know if we can hear him, but
yeah, I can hear you.
He brought up that we had a writer on before. I don't know if it was for Zenoscope, but we had talked about the cheesecake covers, and I know Chris, you had a question about that before, and we kind of just addressed it right now. And that was it. Was like we didn't understand the whole cheesecake cover idea, because when you read, because I've read some of those stories, like the Wonderland stories and stuff, and it is just action adventure. So
right.
I love that you took that and you flipped it for your Kickstarter.
Yeah, because the thing is, there's there is an audience for that I think a lot of the comics community of writers and even artists don't understand, and that is the collector's market. Okay, that is those books are done in a style that appeals to the collector's market, where they don't look at it as, oh, why is the cover different from the story? They don't see it that way at all. It's an art piece the same way a trading card is to them. And that is a huge part of the comics community. And I think that kind of scares some writers and some artists, because it becomes not about their story, and it becomes, the same way that some people don't like how people slab comics, Right. But this market is huge. It's huge in the DM, it's huge on Kickstarter, and it's huge direct for publishers. And some publishers like Zenoscope, Black Mask Studios, Scout, Dynamite are really appealing to the collector, as well as the people who love and appreciate the story arcs. And that is the thing that the audience is different than you would assume. I've seen a lot of people assuming that the people who collect those are like these like loser dudes who like jerk up to the covers. But
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
The truth is, I'd say go to a Zenoscope booth and note the amount of people at the booth who are women. That aesthetic is a major appeal to an audience that these writers who would critique Zenoscope don't understand in any way, and they're leaving a portion of what they could be making that could help make them a career on the table.
Right. And that's interesting too. And it's funny you say that, because people have all these perceptions about fan bases for things, and it's like, everybody has their own vice and what they enjoy, and it's like, just let them do their thing, let them enjoy what, and like you said, when you go to the booth, it's mostly women, so it's like your perceptions are usually wrong. Yeah. So back to the Kickstarter. You don't need our help, but
no, listen. Every single bit of either talking about it publicly here or just a pledge, anything is helpful, because the truth is, while Cheeky itself is doing well, while it's getting bigger, this also is helping me put lower goals for other campaigns that would be harder to fund. It's all in service of the overall vision. So this is definitely a life-changing campaign, but every time I get a pledge, I'm still really, really happy. I haven't really gotten used to doing well on Kickstarter. I do expect to hit a certain amount of backers, of course. I've developed my brand that way, and I've worked hard at getting an audience here. But I would definitely be foolish to sort of discount and just take for granted that, not every campaign will be this, for sure,
Right. And we were talking earlier, sex sells. So and it's funny because I knew we had this interview, and every time I go to Kickstarter for like, the top comics just at night just to check out what's going on, yours has been on the top for I don't know how long. I mean, it's like it's been up there as like the first search or first recommendation.
Long time,
Yeah, it's a long time. Yeah.
No, it's I'm very happy about it. It's I on day one, I was like, oh, it's different, right?
Right.
This one is different,
right.
But it was the next day where I was like, oh shit, this is kind of like day 2 did as well as like a really good day 1.
Yeah, right.
And I was like, day 3 is like a really good day 1 too, and it really it changed the scope of this thing for me,
Yep. Yeah, that's a testament too, because typically after day 1, day 2, you'll see a drop off for a while, and you usually hit a slump like in the middle of the campaign, right? Or is that true for some of your older ones?
Oh yeah, that's true for everyone in the older ones. Yeah.
So it's probably a nice relief to see how this is doing. And we were talking about some of the different pledges and things, and like things you're doing. You have a lot of different art prints. You talked about a lot of people got in on the $50 reward this year because you're doing a pretty low price bundle, right? So maybe we'll talk about that one.
Yeah, my plan there, and this is advice that I actually gave on Kickstarter, on Twitter today. I did a thread of everything that I've learned, just one tidbit of knowledge that I took away from every campaign that I've done. And this is campaign 23. And a major thing that I learned, I believe, my first time doing it was Thirsty, possibly, where in the past, I would do, I would see these creators do these big bundles, $200, $300, where they get all this merch, everything that's on the campaign you get. So I was seeing about maybe 7 to 10 high-end 15 backers on those high levels for me. And I was looking at what I was offering, and I was like, it's very print driven. It's, I do my variants, but it's a lot of money. What if I take away a bunch of those items that people might see as just padding, and I give them a really killer level and make it as low price as possible? So they look at the campaign. The main offering is Cheeky with 2 different covers. The main cover and the Kickstarter variant. You get that for $40. Or spend $10 extra, you get a book plate, 2 prints, and a pin. That to people is a no-brainer. So I saw that ceiling of 15 disappear. So now, instead of 200, I do 50, and I have on that level 265 backers. So it's a no-brainer for me to offer a better value at a lower profit, but watch that number increase, so I end up making more in the long run, and also leaving backers happier because they are getting a bunch of cool stuff for very, very, very low.
Right. Yeah. So in the long run, it's a great business decision for you. And there's still 12 days to go, so I can't see how high it gets up to.
Yeah.
Maybe 100,000. We'll see.
I was talking to someone today. The final 2 days, at 48 hours, everyone who has followed but not backed will get an email saying, hey, get on this shit, and they'll check it out. And hopefully, the last 2 days are seen as almost like a light launch day. So we could have a crazy eventuality and hit 100,000. That would be absolutely mind-blowing. But say we don't do that. Say this is it. I'm fine. I'm very pleased. I'm very happy.
Yeah. Well, congrats, man. That's awesome. And before we let you go, we got to talk about this other book you have going on with Scout Comics. I wanted to talk about that a little bit. Azza the Barbed.
Yes,
so give us the lowdown.
Yeah, it's a new creator-owned series that I'm doing with artist Rio Burton. This is a fantasy about a woman who was banished from her city. She is left to guard this ancient evil, and if she guards it for long enough, she will be free of this role and also free to roam the land. But this ancient evil gets unleashed, and she has to decide whether she's going to save the city that banished her or kind of just live her own life.
Awesome. And this was just an idea you had. So how did it come about? You started working with Scout, because we see a lot of amazing stuff, especially fantasy stuff, coming from Scout lately.
Well, this one actually was kind of the reverse. Often, I mean, especially with Kickstarter, I will, have an idea, and the artists who work for me are largely all work for hire. With Azza the Barbed, Rio Burton had the core of the idea, came to me, and we talked about the designs together, and I turned the idea into a plot outline and then scripts, and yeah, so it kind of happened in the reverse, and that's yeah, that's something I would love to happen more often. There's artists that I would love to work with that, there's a limit to how much time I could put into idea development with what I already have going. I have so many like kernels of ideas that I haven't developed, but it would definitely light a fire under me if an artist who I love came to me with an idea and designs it and wanted to co-create with me. That's an amazing feeling that kind of hits different as far as collaboration,
Right, right.
And yeah, Scout and I were talking about actually Destiny New York
Okay.
back in the day. And that ended up going through Black Mask because of just the way the conversations lined up and what I chose at the time. But I still wanted to work with Scout pretty badly. It just didn't work out on that one title. So we brought Azza to Scout through Charlie Stickney, who is a friend of mine. He writes White Ash, and he is co-publisher at Scout. Charlie is, I mean, you see your peers in the comics industry. Charlie is a guy that I would hang out with outside of comics, which, is rare. I'm an asshole.
I don't see that. What do you mean?
Thank you.
Yeah.
So yeah, dude, Charlie liked it, and Charlie helped shepherd the title into what's happening now, which is that it's hitting shelves in September. And right now, today is the Sunday. I think it's Sunday, right?
Yep, it's Sunday. Yep,
Sunday before Comic-Con, and at Comic-Con, I'm going to appear with Scout, and I'm going to sign the first taste of Azza, which is a metal cover.
Oh man,
of number 1. The art is on the cover by Liana Kangas. She'll be there.
I love her. Her covers are amazing.
Oh yeah, and it's gonna be sick, dude. Yeah, it's gonna. I'm there on Friday and Saturday signing at Scout. The same day, I'm signing some older stuff with Zenoscope. I believe it's a push for Robin Hood, which was at the time my main title there.
Yep.
And now I'm doing a Van Helsing run, my second Van Helsing run. So hopefully that they'll have some single issues there for the newer stuff. And lastly, at San Diego, I'm doing a Black Mask signing that they're going to have, I believe, 2 versions of a con exclusive cover for Destiny New York 1. So I will be there for those 3 publishers.
That's amazing. I'm getting so jealous hearing about all the amazing variants Scout and like Vault Comics are doing for San Diego, and like I gotta get my hands on some of these.
Yeah, do it. Yeah, of course.
Yeah, that's so cool. Leanna has been on the show before, and she's so great. She said Destroy is an awesome book, and her art is just absolutely amazing. So
it really sure cool. Is. Yeah, shout to Joe Corallo too, who wrote She Said Destroy.
Yeah, that's a great series.
Joe's the man.
Yeah, exactly. Pat, thank you so much. This is such a fun interview, and we're gonna have the Kickstarter link in the show notes below for everybody. If we want our listeners and viewers to follow you and all the cool stuff you're doing, where can we send them?
You can go on to Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and now TikTok for my twerk videos at Pat Shand.
Twerk videos. Oh man.
tinyletter.com/Pat Shand is my newsletter, and my Etsy store is Space Between Comics. I do a Destiny New York trading card game promo card for every con I do. And while I'm at the con, any purchase gets the card, and any one who wants to just buy the card outright can do so as well.
That's awesome. What a cool little idea you have there too. That's amazing.
Thanks. I'll actually show you the trading card for the show right now. This is by Joe Picar, who actually is working on Shiki. This is our Destiny New York holographic.
Holographic? Oh, come on, man. You're kidding.
This is Taylor, who is a character in Destiny New York and is the lead of Smoke Weed, See the Future.
Oh my god, amazing! You just had to make it shiny. See, I'm a sucker for that stuff.
I had to,
That's
yeah.
all. It's very shiny. Everybody who's just listening, you got to get your hands on that. So
It sure is.
Pat, thanks again. Best of luck to you, and we'd love to have you back anytime.
Thanks a lot.